According to the Canadian Centre for Caregiving Excellence, 1 in 4 Canadians is a caregiver. 1 in 2 will become one. It's not easy being a caregiver. And to help us dig deeper on the importance of caregivers and some of their challenges, I'd like to bring in Varsha Bhat. Varsha is the creator of host of Aging with Dignity, a Montreal-based video podcast inspired by her own caregiving journey, supporting her parents through illness, loss, and end-of-life transitions. She brings honest, culturally aware, community-focused insight to tough family topics. Varsha joins me in studio. Welcome to Life Unrehearsed, Varsha.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you for having me here and helping to shine the light on the Aging with Dignity podcast.
Yeah, great podcast. You're doing a fantastic job, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. And it's really becoming a powerful community voice. And so take us back to the beginning. What personal experience led you to start the podcast, and why did it feel so necessary for you?
Yeah, so let's go back to last year. I fell into a position quite suddenly that many are actually living very quietly. I became caregiver to my aging parents. Our situation was that Mom had a very rare form of dementia. She presented as Alzheimer's, so the loss of memory, as well as the loss of motor skills, so a bit of Parkinson's. My dad was basically the primary caregiver to my mother until he had cardiac failure, and that's when I had to step in and become primary caregiver. It's a really interesting dynamic, Matt, when you think of a child having to make decisions about life and end of life and lifestyle for our parents. So that, along with trying to balance my professional life, my personal life, there's a sense of loneliness, there's a sense of guilt and grief. As I started to come through all of that, and my father passed away a year ago at the end of November, I started to talk with many of their friends and my own friends who were straddling 2-3 generations, and came to realize that this is not an isolated situation. We really needed to have a forum, is what I felt, where we can have open, honest conversations and bring relevant, timely information to the audiences that listen. I thought this was a situation that was really focused on the South Asian community here in Montreal, until, of course, I started talking to all of my friends who are Italian, Egyptian, Turkish, and so on. And they shared that this was a similar consideration in their families. So I started to widen my scope a bit to the first and second generation immigrant population, until I started to talk to some French Canadians. And they said, we've been here a long time, 6, 7, 8 generations, but we're facing the same challenges. And Matt, when you see somebody who's in their 80s having to take care of a loved one who's in their hundreds, it becomes quite evident that this is an issue that is affecting many, many of us. And so Aging with Dignity, the podcast, was launched. We launched on my mother's birthday this year, and we continue to drop episodes every week.
Listening to Life Unrehearsed, Matt Del Vecchio here, and I'm talking with Varsha Bhat, creator and host of Aging with Dignity. It's a Montreal-based video podcast inspired by her own caregiving journey that you just heard. Varsha, you talked about guilt. I want to address this. We see this a lot in my world, dealing with seniors, older adults, and the sandwich generation. Why do you think guilt shows up so heavily in caregiving, and what can be done about it?
Matt, caregiving guilt is a very real, universal thing, but it's really not talked about. And I lived it. It sounds like you've experienced it as well. I want to shine the light on this for families. I want them to understand what it is, name it, and then release it, because there shouldn't be any guilt associated with caregiving. And later this month, I've actually got a caregiver advocate who will bring stories from across Canada with a unique approach to understanding what we're calling guilt and why we need to let that go. There's no such thing as the best answer or the right time for things. So we'll be really profiling that later this month as well.
You're tackling a lot of very tough subjects, palliative care included, but I also want to talk about medical assistance in dying, Varsha, otherwise known as MAID. I've had this topic on Life Unrehearsed several times. It's just going to get more and more popular as our population ages, and it remains one of the most emotional and divisive issues in Quebec. And so do you plan to open up around MAID on your podcast, and how do you see that coming together in a way that respects the complexity yet the humanity of the topic?
Yeah, that's a great question, Matt. MAID it's legal here in Canada, but it's very emotional. It is very polarizing and highly personal. I think we need to shed light, as you said. I plan to bring multidisciplinary panels to discuss this on Aging with Dignity. We need to have people that are coming from various faiths that can help influence that discussion. We've got medical practitioners and legal practitioners coming, and I've also got family lived experience. They've helped their loved ones come and actually execute MAID initiatives. The whole AWD platform is about bringing the professionals that can help share and shed light and insights on new technologies and new medical devices and new systems like MAID, along with the family's lived experience. And we'll be doing that with MAID as well early in 2026.
Glad you're tackling that. It is a very difficult, emotional topic, but the percentages are just going up. It just recently came out now. I think over 5% of deaths in Canada are as a result of MAID, and only going higher. And I think for good reasons. Big proponent of MAID, and I think the next generation will really try to promote this as well. Now, before we wrap up here, Varsha, you're heading into season 2. First of all, congratulations. Great podcast. Took a lot of guts and courage to start this up under heavy personal, emotional circumstances, I'm sure. So you're starting season 2 soon. Can you give us a little preview?
Sure. I'm amazed that we completed season 1, actually. This is a community service outreach initiative where everybody is volunteering their time, from my videographer, marketing, myself, all of the guests who come on. So we've been very, very honored by the caliber and quality of the professionals that are coming on, as well as the families sharing their lived experiences. Season 1 was very much about my journey with my parents. Season 2 takes a wider, broader scope, different families, different cultural backgrounds coming to play. We will be digging deep into some critical illnesses like diabetes and heart and stroke and dementia. We'll also be doing some fun things. I want to look at the body, mind, and soul, and how do we create some resilience for our caregivers and for our older adults that are dealing with a lot of these challenges. So we've got an exciting season 2 coming. We're pretty much booked out, and I'm already starting to plan out season 3. So once again, very, very grateful and blessed by everyone that's coming forward.
Well, great. I'm glad you mentioned body, mind, and soul. In fact, on the second half of Life Unrehearsed, we're going to be addressing this very, very topic with winter starting and slips and falls. And so important that is beyond just physical requirements to prevent falls, but from a caregiver perspective, which is your angle, body, mind, and soul, so important. Glad you're addressing that. Varsha, how can people get a hold and listen to your podcast?
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's a video podcast, so definitely on YouTube, Aging with Dignity podcast. We're also on Spotify, Amazon, Apple, any podcast platform that you're used to going to. Look for our logo. It's a black microphone with the yellow chrysanthemum on it. Chrysanthemum is really all about well-being. Easy to identify.
And you mentioned video podcasts, and you've got your video crew in here in studio. I'm not used to this, Varsha. We're being videotaped all over here. But good job, because the world of podcasting is certainly changing, and you're leading the pack there regarding caregiving. And I want to thank you very much for coming in here on a Sunday.
Thank you very much, Matt. Appreciate it.
All right. That's Varsha Bhat, creator and host of Aging with Dignity, a Montreal-based video podcast inspired by her own caregiving journey.